There was a time when the world seemed larger than life to a man named Eli Turner, a farmer who lived on the outskirts of a quiet American town called Maple Creek. The land had been in his family for 3 generations. His grandfather had plowed those same acres with a horse and a rusty steel plow. His father had added machines and irrigation. Now Eli carried both their dreams and their burdens. Every morning before the sun rose, Eli walked out into the mist-covered fields. The soil was damp, soft under his boots, breathing with the quiet pulse of the earth. He'd pause at the old fence line and close his eyes, listening to the wind whistle through the corn stalks. That sound, half whisper, half prayer, reminded him why he worked so hard. His father's voice echoed somewhere deep in his memory. "Son, don't just grow crops. Grow hope." But hope was harder to grow than corn. Years had not been kind. The rain came late, the markets fell early, and the cost of seeds seemed to rise with every sunrise. Banks didn't understand the language of soil and sweat. They spoke in numbers, deadlines, and signatures. Yet Eli, with hands rough as the bark of the old oak near his barn, never stopped believing that life had purpose beyond profit. His neighbors thought he was old-fashioned. They saw his cracked boots, his weathered hat, his quiet ways, and wondered why he didn't just sell the land, move to town, and find something easier. But Eli wasn't built for easy. He was built for endurance. One autumn, after another disappointing harvest, he sat on his porch watching the setting sun bleed over the fields. His wife, Mary, came out quietly and sat beside him. She handed him a cup of black coffee, the same way she had for 20 years. "You did your best," she said softly. Eli nodded but didn't answer. His best didn't feel like enough anymore. That night, as he looked at the ceiling beams of their small farmhouse, he whispered a prayer. Not for money, not for success, but for meaning. He wanted to know that all this struggle, the long days, the aching back, the calloused hands, and was leading somewhere. Weeks later, he got his answer in the smallest way imaginable. One gray morning, Eli noticed a boy standing at the edge of his property. The boy was maybe 12, thin with a backpack slung over one shoulder. He was watching the tractor move slowly through the field. Eli stopped the engine and waved. "You lost, son?" The boy shook his head. "Just watching. I like how you do it." Eli smiled. "Ain't much to see, just turning dirt." The boy grinned. "Maybe, but it looks like you love it." Something about that hit him deep. A stranger could see what he had nearly forgotten, the love in his labor. Over the next weeks, the boy, whose name was Tommy, began to visit often. He asked questions about the soil, about planting, about the rhythm of the seasons. Eli didn't have sons of his own, so he found himself explaining, showing, teaching. And somewhere in that exchange, and the passing of old knowledge to young hands, he rediscovered his own spark. "Why do you do it?" Tommy asked one day, kicking at the dirt. Eli thought for a long time before answering. "Because the land gives back what you give to it. You treat it right, it feeds you. You neglect it, it withers, same as people." That simple sentence would one day echo far beyond that small farm, but Eli didn't know it yet. The next spring brought new storms, both from the sky and from the world. Prices dropped again. A flood swept through part of the valley. Neighbors lost acres. Some left town entirely. Eli's own barn roof tore off during a storm, and part of his crop drowned under the rising water. But even in the worst of it, he refused to give up. He rebuilt the barn with his own hands. Tommy showed up after school to help, learning how to swing a hammer, how to repair, how to endure. They worked in silence most of the time, the kind of silence that builds character. At night, Mary would look out the window at the dim light of Eli's workshop and smile faintly. She knew that even if the world measured success in dollars, her husband measured it in devotion. One evening after the harvest, Eli stood at the edge of his land again. His yield had been smaller than ever, but as he looked across the field, he saw something beautiful. Tommy and his friends had planted a small patch of vegetables near the road. A sign read, "Community Garden, free for anyone in need." Eli felt something swell inside him. This was the difference he'd always wanted to make. Not money, not fame, just goodness. Passed on seed to seed, soul to soul. Word spread around town. People began to stop by. Some donated tools. Others brought food. The community, once divided by hardship, began to rebuild around a shared purpose. And at the center of it all was Eli, not the richest man, but the one who had reminded everyone what richness truly meant. Years passed. Seasons turned. Tommy grew up and went away to study agricultural science. Before he left, he visited Eli one last time. "I'll be back," Tommy promised. "I want to make farming better, smarter, fairer. For everyone," Eli smiled. "Just don't forget the soil, son. The land remembers kindness." When Eli grew old, his steps slowed, but his spirit didn't. He'd still rise with the dawn, still check the fence line, still whisper a prayer to the wind. Sometimes he'd think of his father, and how he used to say that real men leave behind more than memories. They leave behind meaning. The final years of his life were peaceful. The farm, though small, thrived again under Tommy's innovations. Solar panels lined the barn roof. Smart irrigation systems fed the fields, and new life pulsed through every acre. And yet, despite all the technology, Tommy still kept Eli's old wooden plow by the barn door, a reminder of where it all began. When Eli passed away one autumn evening, the whole town gathered for his funeral. Farmers, teachers, students, old friends, and gay. They came not just to mourn, but to honor a man who had lived by one truth. Don't just make a living. Make a difference. Tommy stood before the crowd, his voice steady but his eyes bright with tears. He taught me that success doesn't happen overnight. It happens in silence, in sweat, in sacrifice. It's built in the moments no one sees, when you're tired but keep going, when you fail but plant again, when you love something enough to give it everything. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a gentle wind swept across the fields. The cornstalks rustled, soft, rhythmic, alive. It sounded almost like applause. And from that day on, Maple Creek changed. The town began hosting yearly harvest fairs, raising scholarships for young farmers. They named it the Eli Turner Foundation for Hope. Each year, someone would stand at the podium and repeat his words, words that had outlived him. Don't just aspire to make a living. Aspire to make a difference. Your purpose isn't just about you. It's about the lives you touch, the hearts you heal, the hope you give. Tommy, now older and wiser, would walk those same fields every dawn, his boots pressing into the same soil, his heart carrying the same faith. The world had changed, but the lesson had not. Because true greatness doesn't shout. It whispers through generations, like the wind through the corn. It's not measured in acres, but in impact. Not in profit, but in purpose. Not in how much you earn, but in how much you give. And somewhere in that endless horizon, Eli Turner's spirit still lives. In every seed planted with hope. In every child who learns that even the smallest hands can grow something beautiful. That is the real harvest.